Winnipeg. Our city has accomplished several amazing feats. This film will talk about one in particular, the hip-hop dance community. We are powerful, massive, unique, diverse, creative, and our efforts have gained us international recognition. But to understand how it all came to be, we must go back to the beginning. So sit back, relax, and welcome to Our Scene, the movie.
Winnipeg has seriously, historically, been slept on from time.
Geography-wise, Winnipeg is in the middle of nowhere.
Like, we're in the center of the prairies, right? Very kind of isolated from other cities. If you want to battle in Calgary, you're going to drive 16 hours to get to that battle.
Growing up, is a lot of family-oriented, community-oriented.
Because it's a big city and you always run into people that you know at all times. It's also a place that has two seasons, summer and winter.
Definitely cold.
It's cold as hell. I hate it. I hate it so much. But I love this city. Like, the strength of, the community work here is unlike anything I've really seen in any other cities.
Early days.
The one thing about Winnipeg that has always been obvious is that we've got a lot of immigrants.
So this is the Filipino community, right?
Filipino culture.
Filipinos.
Filipino guys. Filipino community.
Well, there are a lot of Filipinos here.
They were all recruited. There were companies here in Winnipeg that were going to the Philippines. They were recruiting factory workers. You know what I mean? And obviously, when you're coming from the Philippines, you see an opportunity to possibly make a better life for yourself and your family. Why wouldn't you jump on it? If the conditions were, were right. And that's exactly what it was. And I think that immigration has obviously played a huge part in the talent that you've come to see in the city.
Winnipeg is a party city. It is a party city. When I used to live here, I remember, the teens, youth, we'd go to like debuts and stuff like that.
Which is like basically a giant party, like on the scale of a wedding, but for 18th birthday. And so there's always like a dance component where, they could do like waltz and usually hip hop routine.
It's like welcoming their becoming a lady, a woman. So they throw in a big party, it's a big thing for them. And then that's when everybody goes. Like most of the youth, don't go to a club, right? They can't go to a club yet, so they go there. That's our debuts. It's part of our culture, even in the Philippines. When you have like your household, your mom and dad will, when they have visitors, their uncle or aunt or their visitors come to your house, you're part of the entertainment. You'll be like, Cesar, why don't you sing? Why don't you dance? So you be there like dancing, and like,
I was first exposed to it, obviously through TV, right? But I think that I was lucky enough to have homies that were constantly going down to Cali and bringing up these mixtapes.
These VHS tapes would go around, and the second if you could get your hands on them, so somebody just had them.
Back then, the VCR, you would have to press pause and then keep pressing it so it'd go slow-mo. Rather, you would have to make your own slow-mo. So in the process of that, I was trying to teach myself by just looking at videos and slowing everything down, like gradually.
I remember, oh my God, this is funny. This hot commercial, like I think it was like a Coca-Cola commercial. It's all break dancers. And we would sit in TV, like watching TV, just hoping that commercial will go on so we can just press record.
We used to listen to the radio and wait for the right song. It's like, this is the song, and then we record it. And then tell everybody, be quiet. I don't want anyone noisy.
I saw my first video that my homie brought up from Cali. And he's like, you've got to watch this. I'm like, what is this? This is called breakdancing. I'm like, what?
What is that? It's something that we can do.
Moving didn't feel foreign. It almost felt like, well, this is actually the way I was supposed to move all along. Do you know what I mean? It was never, you never had to try.
and we would just copy all the steps that were happening then. And that was really, as far as hip hop as a dance, I mean, the mid 80s to late 80s was kind of like the birth of hip hop dance, quote unquote hip hop dance, right?
Actually, the first 2 times that I ever saw breaking, I remember distinctly the first time not liking it, and then the second time like being like, meh. The thing that attracted me to it was straight up like acceptance, really is the thing. They're like, all right, cool, man, like you can do this move, you can hang with us and learn more moves and continue to hang with us. And like, you know, it's almost like before you know it, you're kind of in a crew.
I just moved to a new location near my cousin's school, and it's all like, if you don't want to get beat up at school, you gotta be cool. So here's how to break that.
It was the windmill. I thought the windmill was the coolest move in the world.
Spinning around in circles based off your momentum that you're throwing your body in was automatically, I caught it. I just understood it in the back of my head. Like I saw it, I went with it, and I was amazed by it.
It was this thing, it was hip hop, it was b-boying.
And it plays to our young boys' athleticism too as well, that you want to do something like acrobatic or something crazy. I mean, if you're poor, you can't take like martial arts class or anything like that. So and then if you're poor, you can't join a sports club or hockey or soccer. But what can you do? Like dancing is free, and you can just do that in your basement. And it's really cool as well.
So we started copying the moves and stuff like that, and you know, and next thing you know, we brought out some friends and we formed a group called Winnipeg Dynamic Breakers. Yeah, that's like start doing it in 1984.
I was fortunate enough to have been a part of the second generation of the Midnight Breakers. The first generation they were in the 80s, like 84-ish. 84 to 86, I'm thinking. And at the time, they were like literally the first generation of b-boy crews in the city.
There's 4 major crews at that time. This is like 84, 85. That's Winnipeg Dynamic Breakers, Rap Crew, the Midnight Breakers, and also Breakdown. I don't know if you heard of Breakdown. This is with Saints and Darnell, and they have one Filipino guy. All blacks first, and then one Filipino guy, Andy Fajardo, and that's their popper.
They were the ones that really laid down the actual foundation for b-boying in the city during the 80s. And just like everywhere else, Winnipeg obviously got caught up in the breakdance craze.
We weren't real hip hop heads. We were just like a bunch of kids that saw something cool and we just wanted to learn.
The main reason why there were even b-boy crews at the time was everyone's caught up in the frenzy, right? Through Star Wars, Break-In, and Beat Street were the 3 movies that probably had the most influence in the city with those crews. And plus, it was so obvious when you watch them dance. It's like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with what you're doing because it's in the movie. Yeah, I get it.
Kind of a bite off of what Crazy Legs said was happening in New York, but every area you went, it was just kind of like these like tribes of crews. And if you either knew somebody and it was cool, or you didn't and they wanted to battle or whatever.
That's what really brought like a lot of people together. I think it created a camaraderie amongst like crews, but also created a lot of like tension and animosity between schools.
Beef back then was like a thing, and especially like you know, now people look at dance and battles as in, yeah, it's dance first, and you know, obviously if something gets escalated to the point where, you know, there's gonna be a fight or whatever, right? Like they kind of try to separate the two a lot. Back then, it wasn't known to be separated. Like there were things where like it could end up in a fight.
You're representing your hood, your clique, and I don't want to say gang, but it had that vibe too as well whenever you'd see another crew. Because A, you want to battle them, but B, we're young kids that don't know how to handle our emotion. So when someone does the slightest diss, your homies are behind you that don't break, and they're ready to go.
I remember one time, like, it's usually the crowd that's watching, like who they shout and make noise for. Usually, how you know that how you won, right? So they're like, I'm like, Roger, he's from Midnight Breakers, right? He's the head of Midnight Breakers. Listen to them. Who they're cheering right now? They're going dynamic, dynamic, dynamic. I don't hear no Midnight Breakers right now they're cheering for. So man, come on, we gotta packet this up. We gotta go. We won.
And obviously, like, that's how a lot of people are gonna learn, right? Because if there's no direct line to an actual OG crew from New York or California, then, you know, we gotta kind of figure it out on our own kind of thing. So even though they weren't necessarily hip hoppers or like hip hop heads, they were very much laying the groundwork for b-boying in the city, very much. And I remember the time, it was crazy, like local ads on local media, you know, Pizza Pop ads.
The Pizza Pop commercial, if you've ever seen it.
Pizza Pops, Chili Pops, Pizza Pops, the food that's right to satisfy your appetite. Chili Pops and Veggie Pops too, when you're in the mood for wholesome food. Pizza Pops, Chili Pops, Veggie Pops. Easy to cook, they're all the rage. Just put them in the oven or your microwave. They taste so good and they taste so fine, you'll wanna eat them anytime. Pizza Pops, Chili Pops, Veggie Pops. Pizza Pops, Chili Pops, Veggie Pops.
It was cheesy as fuck, but like, they still got props for it, you know what I mean? Like, not one crew in the city was clowning on them. They're like, yo, you fucking repping, yo, that's that shit, right? They literally were repping. And then of course, the entire Filipino community just like, yo, you know what I mean? We got Filipinos on a Pizza Pop ad.
I remember we were like watching that. I'm like, we should have been in that. You know, but you know, we're allies. We're like all cool and like, but if Midnight Breakers would have got that, we were like, no, let's battle it out.
Once the corporates decided they couldn't make money off it anymore, it died, literally died. We started to subside, right? That second wave of b-boying started to subside.
So what are we gonna do now? You know, we can still b-boy, but like nobody really gives you jobs as b-boys and stuff like that. We can really perform. People will be like, oh, it's over, it's dead. So that's 86. That's when we saw Janet Jackson, What Have You Done For Me Lately video. They all start doing all this Nick shit, all this stuff. They're like, wow, that's kind of cool. It's kind of like, reminds me of Mr. Wave waving, like from New York City Breakers, right? So they start doing all this stuff. I'm like, they start doing some choreo. We're like, we can do this, right? So that's when we started City Lights.
CLC, City Lights crew, that repped late 80s to early 90s. A lot of their style was groove and like New Jack Swing type style. So anything you'd see in a Bobby Brown video or a Guy video or any of those videos back in the day, they were doing those routines.
And that's when we started doing choreography. Terrible, but it got better. 86, 87, 88, and that when it comes to 89, that when it comes, New Jack Swing came out. Teddy Riley made a genre popular, New Jack Swing, and the beat is just hot. Man, this is something that we can like really, you know, get into. You know, that's when we start doing some Running Man and doing some like Roger Rabbit and all that stuff.
That was super exciting for the Filipino community because that's when everybody was trying to do it. But they were the ones that were performing at weddings and debuts and stuff, so it was really, really cool. That's the first touch of my experience of any type of choreography happening in the city.
City Lights we heard of.
Yeah, they're really big in the dance community.
Yeah.
right?
I don't think I've ever met, or maybe we have.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, we've heard of them. Like when we were dancing, and they would mention, oh yeah, they did similar things like us. But we only heard of them when we were performing.
But I mean,
because we danced till what, like 95 until about 2006 or so. Like, it's a good span of time, right? So. And
it helped us to become who we were, because early on we were being compared to them, or the scale was set so high. Right? Everybody was asking, so they're not like City Lights. They're not this and this. I mean, we're like, well, we got to prove to everybody that we can keep on going. We may not be City Lights because they have their own flavor, but we got to add. And this is why we decided to, hey, let's do some flips, add some b-boy stuff, not just pure choreo, and then let's see how we can add to this dance community. My favorite story I used to tell was the blizzard of '99. They told us, don't go out. We were like, we have to perform in 4 places. We gotta go do that. We agreed to do it, so packed in one small car. I think the 7 of us drove. We did the dance. We got through it. So we did that, going back home, and then it got stuck. And then we were like, Arlington Bridge going up, going to North End. Suddenly the car stopped, stalled, and then so the driver goes, guys, I think we're sliding down. So we all got down, started pushing. There was blizzard, so nobody was behind us. So we were trying to push it down. We got stuck. We had to push it all the way from Arlington Bridge to Redwood Avenue. And it was like 9 blocks of all blizzard. But we remember it now as one of those crazy times that just because we love dancing, we kept on going.
But then you had guys like Boob and John that were like I said, light keepers.
I think what Bob calls the second to third wave of breaking. And this is where like everybody in the city was breaking. Every high school had at least 1 crew, if not more. Maples had at least 2. Maples was connected to Ken Seaford, which had their crews.
Combo Breakers, I think, was Sisler back in the day. So every school had their own unique, so to speak, b-boy and b-girls, right?
And like, it was like, Winnipeg in my mind was just like everywhere you went, people were breaking.
Eventually it got to a point where sessions started to happen at Garden City.
Garden City Mall.
Garden City parking lot.
Everybody knew to go to Garden City if you're gonna find a battle.
That's Garden City.
It's the style.
We're changing for you. Something's always going on. The action is a Garden City.
It's the place for me.
Garden City Shopping Center.
A place to be.
It was just the place to hang out, and that's what would happen. So one of the guys in Mischief Crew, his cousin was in a crew from Ken Seaford called Hydro Crew. And I remember I was shopping and they were just like, John, we're meeting outside. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, Hydro's here. You know, someone's shopping at the rack, and he looked at, there's a Hydro guy, and they walked up to each other. They were like, where's your crew? They're like, they're around. In food court, where's your crew? They're like, they're at the arcade. And they're like, all right, cool. Let's go. We're going to the parking lot. And like, so the parking lot where Sears is, this was the thing to do. And we weren't the first to do it. We all went out there, and then people would see these crews walking like in the tracksuits, and they would follow. Like if you knew what was up, you would just be like, oh, there's going to be a battle. And we went out there, and then there would be like older kids, like, 18, 20-year-olds, they had their licenses and stuff. They were backing their cars up, opening the trunks, playing the music. We would go to the back of Sears and grab cardboard, like from the boxes that were discarded.
And then we'd do some shitty breaking in the parking lot. And it was funny. Like, I really look at it, and we were really just like amateur night type shit, where it's just like nobody knows really what the heck is going on. But it was still a battle. It was super exciting just to rep with your squad.
Everybody had like really one move that they were good at. You know what I mean? I was like the suicide guy.
Everyone starts off with a 6-step, right? So once you get that first 6-step, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I got that 6-step.
Everyone used to do like a little like 6-step into a flare, like one flare, come back down, go back into another 6-step into a flare. That was really, when we were talking about flares in 95, 96, that was it.
There's only so much you can do with like knowing how to break for like 8 months of your life.
That battle with Hydro, I have distinct memories of like, we got smoked. They had a B-girl. We were like, what the hell? What? And like, she came in and did a move to this day I've never seen anybody do. And it was like, she did this move and it was like, it was a worm, okay? But it wasn't like 2 feet go in the air and then it curves across the body, goes like this. It was like one leg went up, the wave went across diagonally up the other arm, like on the floor, like this. And people like, I was like, we were dumbfounded when we saw that. And people were, and then later we found, yo, I heard that move's called the dead worm. And back then, security would go, what's going on here? Until they realized it was kids dancing, and then they would watch. So it was cool for a minute before they were like, you guys can't do this, like, you know what I mean?
They were saying, you know, breaking's dead. Why are you still doing it?
Literally, there was a time when the only guys dancing were, you know, John or Boob. Literally. The only two in the stage, they're still dancing. And I'd be like, yo, salute, man. You know what I mean?
It was a combination of just like, we just like to dance. I think everybody was secretly breaking, even though it may have died in like 95, 96, but I feel like people were just randomly, yo man, can you still do your windmill? Kind of type shit. Yeah, and then you just try it with your friends and stuff. Yo man, let's try and break. And then, but also just different outside factors, like say you got, my buddy came back from Calgary and brought like Battle of the Year 96.
That was the first time we ever seen European power move combos. Like combos back in the day were like a myth. They were like, could you imagine if you went from a flare into a windmill? We're just like, like that's crazy. That's impossible. And then you're seeing guys go like flare, windmill 90, like just impossible, like things that you used to just dream up. Suddenly like, no, you can do it. You guys are you're just not applying yourself. Dangerous goods. If you've ever driven west to like Calgary or whatever, you always see that there was this dangerous goods exit. Dangerous goods in terms of like transit and customs is like explosives or anything toxic, and they provide a separate route. I was constantly on the phone with Bob, and he was like, hey, there's this battle. So during one of these upcoming breaks, Bob was like, hey, there's this battle in Calgary. And you know, we're all gonna get together and go there and try to enter. It's like different cities battling each other, I think. And yeah, so I was like, cool, yeah, I'll come down. So it was Bob repping Goodfoot, and he was like, you know, there's other members from these other crews that we never really hung out with, but like they had a few, like their crews were dying out, and they had a few people that were still keeping the hope alive.
They were experiencing the same thing that we did. Like Goodfoot, there was a few people who stopped breaking, so there was only, I think it was Dark, Boob, John, and Deceit, like Brian, breaking. It was only those 4 left. And then with Trick Kids, it was only Mav, Arthur 7, and Stawaz, Phil. That was it.
So the idea was, as far as I recall, the idea was we're all gonna get together, like they're gonna get in a van and drive over, and I was gonna fly there and meet them, and we were gonna come together as a crew and just kind of like a last hurrah, like like just try to battle, probably not gonna win, and that'd be the end of it. That'd be the death of breaking in Winnipeg.
And then we just kept seeing the sign, dangerous goods, dangerous goods. It's like, yeah, we should call ourselves Dangerous Goods, you know what I'm saying? And then when we got closer to Alberta, there was this overturned truck that we're like, whoa, that's crazy. And it was like, I don't know if it was via Dangerous Goods signs, but then it just reminded us, it's like, yo, Dangerous Goods, man, we should try and like enter as that. It sounds like cool.
So when I met up with them, they were like, hey, we're gonna go under the name Dangerous Goods. And I was like, yeah, sweet. And they kind of, you know, they told me kind of the story. I kind of got it, but at that point we're all busy doing shots or whatever.
Now every time that somebody is entering our city or leaving our city, they're just reminded that, you know, this is like, you were smoked by us.
When we got a taste of traveling, it was like, I think we're actually onto something in terms of like, our approach in the dance is different in Winnipeg, or at least with Dangerous Goods. when Dangerous Goods was created, there wasn't really any other breaking crews in Winnipeg that took it as seriously as we did. There was crews, but it was kind of like, oh, Break for Bread's coming up. Let's train 2 weeks before Break for Bread. But we were like, Dangerous Goods is constantly breaking all year long, even if there was just one battle of the year. But that sparked the whole, we traveled a lot because once a year wasn't good enough for us. We wanted to do more. So it was a vision of like, of really showing that us underdogs as Winnipeg could do a lot more damage out there if we just got to go and show them. So it was a lot of trying to prove people wrong.
They were establishing themselves. So this thing that was supposed to die as a joke just became a crew. Like they were hanging out more often because they were practicing, and they were practicing so that they could battle. And that's the story as I know it. So that's how it developed into Dangerous Goods, and they were building a name for themselves in the prairies because like Toronto had their own thing, Vancouver had their own thing, Montreal had their own thing, but something was kind of brewing in the prairies, and they were establishing themselves there.
It was such a high skill level that I couldn't even like conceptualize it. So in a way, like their style was so advanced that like it would go over my head. And then as I started to get better and better, and like my eyes started to like adjust to moves and be able to track and see things when people are doing them, I started to really understand Dark style and Lester style and Kyle's style. And then after that, I was just like, it just became even more, holy shit, these guys are crazy, because it wasn't going over my head anymore. Like I was seeing everything. So, but even with that, that just accelerated my need to win against them. So I was like, man, they're even crazier than I thought they were. I gotta just give her.
My name is Sofia Costantini. I was originally hired for a 10-week block, and then I said, hey, you need to hire me full-time. And that's how it began. They found the money, and I started Sisters Most Wanted. Sisters Most Wanted, okay, well, here are gang members in trouble with the law. I always say, you know, their passion of choice was football, basketball, or hockey, but their extracurricular activities was getting in trouble with the law. So, Sisters Most Wanted has 2 meanings. Number one, that they back then got in trouble with the law, but also their dancing was so spectacular that people wanted to see them.
She just basically told me, get in here. I was walking by the dance studio. She was like, you get in here, learn this section of choreography with the boys, currently the dance team, and if you know Sophia, you don't say no to her.
I recruited them. So Spencer Duncanson and I spent a lot of time in the hallways, and I pretty much said, all right, they're pretty athletic. So the only way I'm going to lure them into a dance program, I have to think athletic. So I decided to challenge them to a one-arm push-up contest. And I told them that if they could do more one-arm push-ups than me, they didn't have to take my class. But if they couldn't, they had to agree to take 5. Of course, I won. I earned their respect. And from there, Sisters Most Wanted was developed. Bob Verula, I wouldn't say that he was focused on school.
I was in grade 12, and I needed credits to graduate.
He was a break dancer, and Bob couldn't see the correlation between breakdancing and dance. He, back then, distanced himself from the dance program because he just felt that breakdancing was the way to go. And by being in the program, what I saw is an individual, number one, who developed self-esteem and understood through time the importance of school and managing your time and understanding the importance of getting an education.
That's okay, yeah, cool. I could dance, I can break. I can do the windmill. Like I've been doing it since 3 years already. And so we joined this all boys dance class, and it was a mix of like football players, hockey players, a couple of b-boys, and just a bunch of random dudes, like that have nothing to do with just dudes, and it was this crazy mix of like, okay, we're gonna do this we're gonna do this all boys dance class, and then she came in and we're just like, okay, Sophia, let's go, let's do this, and it was amazing because she really taught us like focus and discipline in a very different way. You know, like we're a bunch of knuckleheads in this dance class. And then by the end of the year, we're performing at the RWB as Sisters Most Wanted. We were the original Sisters Most Wanted. She's been a mentor to all of us. And then to see her thrive in that setting, she was definitely like one of the pioneers of like bringing community into professional dance. And I've learned a lot just from observation from her, you know.
Her care about what she did made us want to make her proud because she just cared about it so much.
Okay, so Romeo Subban was not in trouble with the law.
If she only knew.
A new wave.
My mom noticed that I love dancing, so she tried to convince me to join ballet, which I was like, no.
I was just recording music videos. Like, I would stay up to record music videos for my favorite artists and stuff.
While I would wait for these video game screens to load, I would just like break it down while I waited, or do like a victory dance if I want something. It sounds weird and corny, and I didn't realize what I was doing, but I guess I was developing a skill set there.
And once I started doing street styles, like dance-wise, I felt a lot more at home, and I felt a lot more like I could express myself, and like I really enjoyed the fact that you could have individuality, you can have your own style, you can create your own thing. And I always felt like a bit of like an outcast growing up, so I guess it just like fit better for me.
Going to Maples Collegiate, a lot of Filipinos, you have a lot of Filipino friends. They always got to have that cliche one black guy in their cotillion, so that was me.
I wasn't a dancer. I thought it was kind of lame at first. I was kind of like one of those guys that play like DDR and stuff.
I was fairly quiet, awkward, you know, kind of kept to myself. I was like chess champion for like grade 6, 7, 8. My third year university, while doing full-time studies too, I started off a group called Big Sky Dance Company with 3 other founding members. It was Richie Serrao, Roland Savillano, Dennis De Leon, and myself. Big Sky came from basically our youth group region, prairies, right?
We're flat and we have bigger skies. So that's basically where we got the name from.
We rehearse at parks, anywhere where we can find, right? So we were just that excited about it.
There was no formal training, no studios, it was all basements, garages, outside, back lanes.
So obviously around that time, 2005, 2006, 2007, we didn't really have a scene, really. Like we were learning, we were what you call like YouTube dancers. We would learn off of people from YouTube.
We were seeing, other teams from not only in Southern California, but other dances from within our youth group all across Canada. Praise Team was a huge inspiration for us.
I was looking for something at that point in my life, and I was in a rehearsal for a cotillion. It was actually, I think it was probably my final cotillion, and one of my buddies, and he's an OG CCAP member, Neil Kinkanko, and like his name's Nezi. He showed me this video of a group from Cali called Kappa Modern, and there was like 40, I don't know, there had to have been like 30, 40 members on the stage. I saw the video and I was just absolutely blown away. I was like amazed. I was like, why don't we have this? Like, why can't we have this?
Why can't we have that here? Why can't we have nice things like that?
It definitely like ushered in what we were going to use as our blueprint to hip hop for Winnipeg, but it also tainted it at the same time. Like you gotta understand that for Kappa Modern was like, if I'm not mistaken, they were from a university, so they were almost an all genre group. not necessarily hip hop, right? So when we saw this video, we did see a lot of hip hop. There was a lot of hip hop, but there was a lot of mix of a lot of different genres. But when we look at that dope video, we're like, yo, let's do that. Not knowing that there's like different genres like cut in between there, right? So then when we look at this video and like, hey, that's what we want to do, that's when you get a lot of like, okay, I'm gonna do hip hop. Here's this slow jam. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do hip hop. Here's this like love ballad that I'm gonna do, because we saw that video and that's what we wanted to do. So it was a lot of slow jams, a lot of like small isolations. We didn't take the hip hop because there was a lot of hip hop foundation from that video. That was too technical. So we were like, let's focus on the little things that we could do. The isolations, we'll do that. It
sat in my head for a while as I was finishing up that final cotillion, and then I was like, it was really brewing in my head, and I was like, I really want to try to do something like this. And I didn't know if there was any real interest, but I had some friends that were in that cotillion at the time, like with Joy and with Christine and Crystal. They were the three other people that I had started CCAT with in 2005. Months before us, I'm pretty sure Demesia and Define Movement just had started as well.
I'm not aware of what made Demesia want to start, other than I know that she's a total visionary and like a big picture kind of thinker.
She was amazing. Like she was the only woman actually who was leading a team at the time.
Demesia Hall, she was also an amazing mentor, just a strong person, and she did such an amazing group leading us. She always was open to training in different styles.
At the time, there wasn't really a lot of dance performing choreography groups. I think it was just CCAT starting out.
It was a few days during the week, and like we just kept it open so that people can make it. And I think over 3 days we got somewhere in between 100 and 150 people come in.
It was at DMCI. It was a packed house. There were people there that came to watch, but also just ended up auditioning. Like I remember there was somebody who was there like in their work clothes, like dress clothes, and they just saw that like what was happening and they joined in. It was just like they had to be a part of it. It was crazy.
I walked into the room and I just saw a whole bunch of like young teenagers. And I was 11 at this time, so I was super, super tiny and just was scared of people.
There was a lot of people at that first audition, and it was like a thing, like a bunch of Filipinos, like tons of Filipinos. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like come out to auditions. I'm like, of course I'm gonna come out to audition. I'm gonna kill it. And I got cut, so.
I remember my audition, because there'd be groups and everything like that. And I would go on and certain people would actually go from one side of the room to like scoot over to the other side to watch me do my thing.
Coming from the sports background, like I never got cut from sports, like rarely ever in my life. So getting cut from this, like dance, like it bothered me. I hated Wayne and Andrew and Christine and Crystal and Joy. I hated them for a whole year. I hated them. I saw them at 2IC. I hated them. I didn't even know them.
Starting like a trend that was like, I knew that was gonna be super, super dope like later on. Like we just kind of knew that something was happening, and we knew that like CCAT was happening in the background, but like I knew like what Richie and Romeo's direction, like they wanted to do something big.
A year later, wanting to separate themselves from their original Christian youth group, Big Sky changed their name to Unite.
Unite, meaning like a lot of, dancing and dancers coming together into one.
I'm pretty sure it was Richie that put in that one instead of the I. Those lost people called it Un1T. What's this Un1T dance company?
Back then, it was the rivalry was CCAT versus Unite. It was always the thing. CCAT audition and Unite auditions were like right after each other. So like everyone who didn't make it in CCAT went to Unite auditions, and then everyone was saying, oh, well, you guys are just taking our leftovers. And there became like a whole like talking back and forth. And I guess it started this whole like feud between the two teams.
Romeo and Wayne, they're always trying to compete with each other.
There was that, I would say, that competition. Sometimes healthy, sometimes a little too competitive, right?
Even if Unite was showcasing, you can still tell like Wayne would or CCAT would, I feel like they would just try to one up us regardless, you know what I mean? Because it still felt like a competition who would get like the better set. But like, I love that. Like, that's like my cup of tea.
Everybody wanted to be part of those teams. And then if you didn't fit into that or even fit into the B-boy, B-girl culture, then you'd have to figure out your own way.
At the time of the dance scene back then was so cutthroat. Like, it was like, if you weren't in it or if you weren't a part of this crew, everyone was gonna hound you.
We all wanted the best for our team, for our family, and for what we were building at the time, right?
And obviously Sika was just killing us all the time.
We experienced early success because like Romeo was already on his organizational whatever you want to call it, like he was just the man that way, right?
He just always created these opportunities for the community for really good price, affordable. Then he developed a dance competition.
With several new choreography groups exploding onto the scene, the stage was set for an event to come along for each group to meet and compete. In the zone.
In the zone.
In the zone.
In the zone, in the zone, in the zone. Let's go, let's go.
In the zone, INTHAZONE, from a competition in Vancouver. And again, it was associated with Save the Youth for Christ and a charity called Gawa Kalinga to help build communities, build homes in the Philippines. And from there, we took on the inspiration, the idea to create In the Zone, INTHEZONE. First one, I believe 2006. It was a December production and didn't really know how to event production stuff and just figure it out along the way. We knew there were some teams interested. CCAT was there, Define Movement, Oak Park High School was there, Ignite. There was a small group, Jeevan Valil, Nathan Alexander, a bunch of OGs, Aaron Takeuchi, some amazing dancers. Oh man, Big Deal. That was like Angel. They were a boy band, a Filipino boy band, and I would say it would be 50% body rolls in their set, and it was amazing.
Conflict.
It's funny. I have a funny story. We're already breaking, and then I saw this post. I don't know where I saw it, but Big Sky was holding auditions at UW doing hip hop dance. I'm like, hip hop dance? Huh. I gotta check this out. I'm gonna audition just to check it out. I actually auditioned at Romeo's thing just to really suss it out and see what they were all about. And then it was an audition for a choreography crew, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. Me, I'm just pretty chill guy. It's like, cool, man, choreo. And so that was that's how I knew about Big Sky. CCAT was I just heard through the grapevine that there was this new Filipino crew coming out called CCAT, and they had 50 members and just some crazy shit.
And I remember one time them leaving the studio, and the trail of people never ended because there was 45 of them in there, I swear.
Yeah, there's so much of them, we had to refer to them as a community.
I remember running into DGC at one of the biggest, one of our first competitions.
We entered and we heard about this other crew, or at least again, this is my perspective. I'm probably missing gaps. And they were like CCAT. Wayne Santos, and then 40 Filipinos piled in, and we were just like, what the hell?
The stage was so small and there's like 40 of them on the whole stage was shaking.
B-boys were looking at us choreography dancers and like they're like, what are you guys doing?
No hate or anything, but it was like a watered down version of hip hop. And I think that because coming from our aggressive background too, as hip hop, as b-boys, and really deep in this hip hop culture, when we saw that, we were like, oh, like it kind of looks a little soft.
B-boy community, much respect for them, but they didn't really understand what we were doing, we were trying to do, right? And there was a lot of back and forth.
And then I started hearing that they were referring to themselves as hip hop crews, and it was like, oh, hold on, wait, no. These aren't hip hop crews. And then people would tell me, oh, did you hear about that hip hop crew, so and such. I'm like, oh yeah, I know who you're talking about, but that's not hip hop crew though. Like, oh, that's not hip hop crew. I understand what you mean.
Our thoughts of what hip hop is might be a bit different, but I also knew that they were younger. So I was like, okay, get ready to learn. Get ready to learn what this is all about.
I know that there was a general sense that like it wasn't as raw because they don't really battle. Let's see them try to freestyle.
Perspectives were taken the wrong way, and certain things were probably said amongst different groups that was pretty hostile. It was just, we do this, we're gonna stay in our lane, and you do this, and we're gonna stay in our lane.
If you did choreo, everyone was scared to freestyle for some reason. Like it was just this whole like, I don't want to freestyle, I don't want to embarrass myself kind of ordeal. And in this freestyle side, there wasn't a lot of battles back then. There was like maybe one or two, but there was no all-style battles. There's always a b-boy battle.
In hindsight, we probably shouldn't have been so mean and try to like dust them.
At the same time, they weren't really giving back to the hip hop community, right? They weren't coming to our events.
But then also the freestyle scene wouldn't go to the choreography events either.
I just kind of thought that maybe breaking was a bit too aggressive for that community. It was a bit too crazy and raw, as well as that community may have not have been able to understand it.
We were definitely aware of them because, you know, they started practicing at our practice spots, right? So out of nowhere, we just roll up one day and we see like, I don't know, who was popping at the time? Like Soulify or something?
Yeah, there's Soulify. Yeah.
Soulify would practice there and we'd just be like, what the fuck, right? Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, y'all having a full-on choreographed piece just being put together in front of me. I'm trying to practice my 6-step right now. Like, what's going on, right?
Obviously, there's that side that's always like, this is how it is and how it should be. It should never be any way else.
Probably would have been better if we were just like, hey, let's show you some stuff that we know instead of be like, hey, we're trying to be the best.
Out of like say a team of 30, I bet you that 10% will actually learn about hip hop. And then that 10% will share what they learn. So you know what? I think it's all right. You know what I mean? I think it's fine.
The choreo people are just doing it organized-wise, while the freestyle people are doing it too because it's just them doing it. So they have the freedom doing whatever they do, right? So it's pretty much just labeling. If you take out the label, we're all the same.
It was a difference because Define Movement was around at that time. That was the first time I saw Define Movement, and they had a different energy though.
Anytime another crew would pop up, anytime any other crew, choreography-based dance crew came up, I was like, oh, like Define. Like it would be like, oh, like Define Movement.
We were all run differently, I would say. Like, and then with Demesia, she's always like, I love that girl. Like, she's always about like the good vibes and just all about feel good dancing. Like, I just want to dance. I don't care. Like, and it was the purest form of dance, I would say, of the three.
We were doing dance hall, we were doing house, we were doing hip hop. Like our repertoire of different genres of styles that we did was, I think, much vast than most other crews.
We were doing things where I feel like you could just like really feel our movement, that it was really responding to the music.
I think for one, Define Movement wasn't necessarily a competition team. We're more of a performance team. So the creation process, I think, was pretty different. I think it was a little bit more natural in a way. I think culturally speaking was different too, because Amicia's also Caribbean, like she's half Jamaican.
She just really wanted us to dance for the love of it, and to just be united amongst ourselves and united with others.
I just felt deeper with them. Like I felt like they were like the choreography version of us, and I was hoping that we were the b-boy version of them.
I was really impressed by the choreo scene. I feel like they were evolving their skill level very fast and really evolving much faster than the breaking scene was.
And with that evolution, Unite Dance Company grew to having 3 teams: Unite Seniors, Unite Juniors, and Unit 3.
A lot of heads leading. Sometimes that could be good, sometimes that could be bad.
It definitely got overwhelming, but you know, with a fairly solid core, right, of leaders, you know, it's fairly manageable, let's just say.
To be honest, it wasn't that good. With myself and Tim and Milka, I think it was okay, but me and Romeo just like, there was a point where we weren't talking for a long time.
It took some time for the both of us, and then for myself to realize that what I'm doing, what we're doing is bleeding off into the group and bleeding off into the community. And how is that helping, right? How is it helping the scene? You know, if we're unite, is that what we stand for, what I stand for? It's bigger than us, that our positions of leadership, our roles was to inspire, was to be leaders.
This is around the time when Kelvin too joined, and for some reason, myself and him we just meshed so well, and we're like, yo, what if we tried to do something on our own? And that's kind of like where Project came from.
Super proud and super happy, and yeah, grateful for Project Company being created, and they have done amazing things and intense and just elevated the scene and put us on the map even more. It's crazy, right? The evolution, right? And I think that's a big part of it, right? Understanding that everybody has their time, right? And celebrating each phase of everyone's timeline.
Okay, but hold up. Do not forget about the B-boys, the B-girls, the poppers, and lockers of our scene. Good Funk Gang, keeping the funk styles alive in the peg.
The name was interesting because we were trying to think of good names. Just me, Mark, and the other guys. At that time, MJ wasn't part of that, and we're like the good boys because we're like nice guys. And I thought it was kind of corny. They kind of liked it. I'm like, I don't really like that. And then I was trying to think of some really like abstract but kind of cool name, and I was like, the Funk Monstars, like from Space Jam. And then it was like, but it was too much. And then I think Mark was like, how about Good Funk? And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah. Then we had to think about how to include women if they were going to be part of like the group. So we're like, oh, gang sounds cool, Good Funk Gang. So we.
Well, yeah, because back in the 70s, your group would be called a gang, right? Even though it's not gangsters, it's just gang. Which is funny because like there's some events where they wouldn't want to say the word gang, so they had to change it to just Good Funk Brothers, and then there'd be like one girl in the crew. Okay.
I had actually met Jeannie at Manitoba Dance Festival when I had performed. Kind of a funny story, actually.
I was teaching at the Royal Dance Conservatory, so we were there for my group to perform. And not only did I think I was like one of the best dancers around. I thought I was the only black guy around.
I remember seeing him backstage, and I was like, I'd never even seen any other black people like in the dance scene. You know what I mean? And I was like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? First of all, shades on indoors. I'm like, you don't know nothing about me, right? I'm about to go on stage. I'm about to rip it, right? I'm gonna make him take those shades off.
Everybody in the front kind of like kneeled down, and then here this black guy pops out and starts like doing all this stunning stuff. And I was so angry. Like, I was like, who is this guy? I hate that he's talented, right?
I'm a competitive person, right? Like, I just like, you know, I'm like, oh, there's another black person here? I'm about to show him better than that.
It was just so like insulting to me because he was doing everything that I knew I couldn't do. But I had to swallow my pride, and I was like, this guy's kind of dope, I guess. Whatever.
As soon as I get off, he's in the wings, like waiting on me.
I was standing there, and he was standing like 6 feet away from me, and I was like, yo, hi. Yeah, that was really dope.
Extends his fist to give me a little dap, right? And I'm like, respect.
That's the first time we met, right? And it was just like, we just kind of talked for a bit, and that was that. It was just like, I'm a black guy, you're a black guy, we're both dancers, everybody else is Filipino, so we have a connection, right? Like, that's how that goes, right?
Jeannie and I had met through a similar dance friend or colleague, and I just knew he was something just special. And I think at that point he wasn't really like dancing anywhere, or didn't really have like, he was just kind of exploring at that point. I approached him with the idea to like start a crew or something, and I remember being so nervous to ask because it was Jeannie.
She told me about it, and I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Like, whoever this Jen person is, she's planning on starting a brand new team. And I was like, I can try and join CCAT and Unite and be part of what's established and what is clearly like super sick, or I can roll the dice on this brand new thing and be a part of something brand new in the city. All right, well, whatever.
Sure enough, he said sure, and I don't even remember how it all happened, but we had put together auditions for a group.
I was just online and I saw these auditions for Boss Dance Crew.
They were starting Boss, right? Starting Boss the same month I was graduating, right? So in June 2011. So I was like, sweet, I get to dance with this guy now, right? Like, I get to join this crew called Boss, and the promo for it was super dope. And I personally didn't want to join a team that was already super established and like winning everything. You know what I mean? That was my perspective. I wanted to start from the ground up and make a name for yourself. You know what I mean? That was how I wanted to go about it. So I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. This team doesn't even have any history yet.
It was Jeannie, myself, and Nikki Zajac. We had come together as a group.
I thought it went above my expectations. Like, we ended up doing like a performance for like the Bombers, like at halftime or something like that. I'm thinking, whoa, Mom, like check this out, you know what I mean? We are performing at halftime, and whether I was being paid or not, it didn't matter, you know? And again, like I'm coming off of what, 2, maybe 3 performances a year, you know, 1 recital, 1 like a pep rally and festival, you know what I mean? So then to just join a team, first year we're doing a Bomber stage, like I was like, hell yeah, like we're about to blow up, you know what I mean?
It was a weird place to be in because I felt like that saying of like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, I wanted to be the leader, but I didn't want to take on those leadership roles, right? Because they're intense, like, and I didn't realize that. Like I said, I was young and a new dancer, and so I think you see all of the appealing pieces of like, oh, you have your own team and you can design your own logos and choose your own songs and compete where you want and do all this stuff. And I loved those ideas. But once you get into them, it's like, holy shit, like this is a big job. And it sounds weird. Like I knew that, like I knew it was a big job, but all of these dancers are like looking up to you, right? And I felt like for this to be successful, and I wanted it to be successful, I needed to step back.
So Jen wasn't at practice one day, and I showed up, and everybody else was there, and people were just kind of sitting around on their phones, talking, nothing was happening. And I was like, if I don't do something, that's the end of Boss, right? And I kind of stood up and I was like, all right, everyone, line up right now. And everybody just kind of got up and lined up, and that's how I kind of became the director of the team, right?
He was very eager and organized and like was willing to try something, and if it failed, he had 76 other plans.
Jeannie was able to actually learn about everyone in the crew and what kind of styles they are really good at, and was able to teach the crew that, you know what, you don't ever lose your style. Don't ever lose your style just because you're in a crew. That's exactly what I learned from the very first year.
We're gonna be different because we're gonna freestyle. We're gonna be different because in our performances, we're gonna have choreography, but then bang, watch. I'm gonna accent this one dancer and show you that my individual dancer is dope.
I remember one of my favorite photos was when the three of us were standing together just talking to everybody, and one of like the main focuses in the photo was Ian Ars. Yeah, Ian was there and he supported us, and he always supported us, and it was so cool. I didn't even know if he wanted to be a part of the team. I think he just came to dance, and it was super awesome.
He's just that type of guy that like everyone kind of wanted to know, or everyone just needs to know who that guy was, because he would make himself like that.
It doesn't matter if you met him yesterday, it doesn't matter if you just met him the day of, he will put 110% for you.
Something about him just made me love dance even more. It was the way he would talk about dance. It was the way he would teach. He was known for choreographing salsa, right?
He was pretty much known as the salsa man and the cotillion man of like the entire city. And there were so many times where it was supposed to be his last debut, but like 5 years later, he's still doing debut.
He was just very passionate about everything that he talked about. You know, you run into people and you kind of have this conversation and you learn a little bit, but when you have that conversation with Ian, it's like, wow, like you have taught me, you know, a whole book.
Whenever I was going through something, he would always relate to it. He'd always like feed off advice, or you should do this, you should do that. Or when I was this age, it's funny because he hates when people mention how old he is.
Just like double guard age.
Yeah. It's like, bro, you can be my dad.
He was so young when he passed away, which made me realize I had to start doing things now for myself, because you never know when you can pass. You never know what's gonna happen tomorrow. You never know what's gonna happen in the next hour. You just gotta start living the life that you want to be happy. Because if not, what kind of life are you living? You're living for yourself, you're living for other people.
Man, he would try to be in a dance group still, I'm not gonna lie. Even if he's 40, he'd try to be in a dance group still. No, I think he would still be a part of it, but I feel like he would try to organize something, try to make an event. He likes bringing people together, so I think he would try to do something like that. If it wasn't for Ian, I wouldn't have like closest friends, like the closest friends that I have right now.
For everything he's done for all of us, his impact will live on for as long as we all can remember. And I know he's still dancing and directing and doing all the fun stuff that he loved to do here upstairs.
I feel like it left a hole, definitely in my heart, and in the city, in the dance community for sure. Whoa, I'm sorry.
So the last question I have for you, what does community mean to you? Define the community in your own words.
Means a whole. One unit, all together, and just being as one family. That's what I think.
Also.
My name is Angel Advincula, ANGELADVINCULA.
Just put yourself in front of that someone that you really, really love.
What brought me back in Winnipeg was depression. I was away from my family for, I think, a good 4 or 5 years. It was 2013, I remember this. The big Yolanda typhoon happened in the Philippines, and I saw everything on the news. Everything was insane. The Philippines was destroyed, and it was watching the news, and I saw all the names of the people that died was just scrolling down TV, and I saw a few of my friends' names in there, and I was just like, dude, what's happening? And that kind of started my depression, because I'm like, obviously, like I lost like a lot of friends. So I decided to go to the Philippines, do my mission in there. So I went to the Philippines. We did a medical mission. We did a feeding program, and we were in the middle of the storm, helping people out. And instead of it making me feel good that I was helping, it kind of devoured me more because of what I saw. That again, like I saw dead bodies like on the side. Like I see people dying, and I'm just like, it made me feel like it was the first time I felt like I couldn't help anybody. It doesn't matter if I'm helping out with the food and everything, but when you see a disaster like that, it totally changes you. My health is just not great because, you know, like I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm just there's just a big cloud that was following me around, and that's when I realized, I was like, if I stayed in Ottawa, I would end up hating what I'm doing. I would end up hating the studio that I'm working with. I would end up dance in general. And I made the decision, and I'm like, you know what, I need to be with my family. I need to smile again. I need to think of nothing but just being home. And 2014, that's when I'm like, you know what, I'm going back home. A few months before that, I already spoke to somebody. His name's JM Ricardo. I asked him, you know what, dude, like, can you start a team? Just gather as many people, and then when I'm ready, I'm gonna join you guys. And it worked out that way. I think our first season, we were even at 50 people. I met them, and I looked in their eyes, and they had the same struggles as myself. We were all starting dance. Like 80% of them didn't know how to dance, and they just wanted to be part of the team. They just wanted to do something different. The way I separated live from all the other teams from Winnipeg was just our mentality. I had to make sure that they know that we weren't joking around. I was teaching them easy choreography, but harder execution. Our first year was our trial year, and we're just like, you know what, we're just gonna be on stage the whole entire time. We're gonna dance this full out. We're gonna be angry on stage. We're gonna yell on stage until you make yourself feel like, yo, this is not scary at all. It's hard to smile on stage because you're gonna feel that scared in your heart. Like you're gonna be like, dude, like I can't be in front of people right now if I'm just gonna stand and smile. So I told them, instead of you smiling there at people, yell at them, get mad at them, and just get that out of your system. And that's how I molded us. And from there, we've had a lot of success following this formula.
Sunset. After 10 years of In the Zone dance competition, giving a platform for so many dancers to explore, create, share, and perform, Romeo, Tim, and Milka hang it up.
We learned as we go, and we had to adapt and refine as we go, right? And I have very little regrets, in terms of Unite in the Zone. Very few to, I don't know, think of any. Maybe that decision with the PowerPoint, but Tim, he still brings it up many times, let's just say. But he's still my friend. I think so.
1, 2, 3, 4. Down. Give me 1, 2, 2.
I believe in you. I know what you're capable of. I encourage you to believe what you're capable of. Trust me in this process, one moment at a time. There is no judgment here. Work is work, and with work comes error and positive correction. So let's do this. Are you with me? I believe in instilling loyalty, respect, communication, and teamwork. And so with teamwork, sometimes comes conflict, and learning how to work through those conflicts versus just stepping away and running to another team. The leaders need to take more ownership in understanding conflict and understanding dynamics and providing growth within their crews for young leaders to be developed. And I think that's why sometimes they hop, is because they have opportunity that they're not getting. So it's just learning how to understand the whole business of a crew. Even though it's not a studio, you're still in a management position where you have to learn how to manage the dynamics, manage the growth of your programs.
Sunrise. Manitoba's all styles and open styles battles have created some of the most memorable moments in our scene, with heavy hitters such as Joe Fresh, Bale, Calian, J. Rec, Winston, Alamar, Genie, Sheezy, Stalls, Shaq, Miggy, the Good Funk Gang, and Marybeth.
When I'm battling, what is going on in my head? When I first started, like absolutely nothing. It was just like blah, just like movement vomit. But now it's obviously I have more strategy.
Going through like the brackets of like battles and stuff was probably the most exhausting things I've like done. It's just because it just wears you out. Like even though you get time to rest, that next battle you're not 100%. You're like 70. Next one you're like 50. Like last one in the finals you're like 20%. You're just like trying to like empty out your gas tank at that point. But then finally hearing that you win, you're just like, I can go sleep.
As a fan of dance, the battle scene has been something that's really dear to me. So much so that as a teacher, I would actually hold field trips where I would get my dancers and get parental permission to actually come out and watch the battles. And I think this is really important, especially as a hip-hop dancer, hip-hop enthusiast, where hip-hop is all about participation, joining and supporting the events.
However incredible these battles are to witness, their emergence served a greater purpose in our scene.
With Bob's impact, though, by introducing an event like an all-styles event, open styles event, he was able to bridge the gap to allow choreography dancers, or those who did choreography dance, who like to freestyle, give them that outlet to go into that freestyle world, that battle world, without feeling any hostility.
I did not throw the first All Styles battle. Rowan did. Do you know Rowan? Yeah, he threw the first one at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet.
Yeah, no, it's kind of surreal that that ended up that way, because that was the only Rep Your Step event. What inspired that Rep Your Step from back then? I thought it would be cool to see like B-boys versus the choreographers or the choreography people. It'd be an interesting dynamic, and I think if there was going to be any three judges to host that first, or to do that first event, it had to be Bob, John, and Demesia.
And I was like, oh, cool, this is cool. But he didn't continue to do it. But it was definitely like props to him for doing that, because it was one of those first spaces that anybody really had a taste of like trying to do anything freestyle at all. And that was like 2 years before I even threw like a Believe the Hype. It was something that really sparked it in a lot of dancers. And when you battle for the first time, you really, no matter how much you say or talk or ego or anything, you're gonna learn something, whether you win or lose, because you're exposed to what you don't know or do know. So I thought it was an amazing thing to create that other platform. We were already doing breaking events, right? But it's like, how can we bring this more together?
There were a shitload of b-boys and there were a shitload of choreo heads, and I remember walking into the gallery and being like, wow, this is the most amount of people that I've ever seen in my life at a jam. And immediately I was just like, I'm ready to battle. And then I slipped on the floor and lost. But that's besides the point.
If we never had all styles battles, like I wouldn't say that there would still be tension, but there's a good chance that there would still be tension between the two communities, right? But then you have people like Jonelle, who comes from a choreo background. You have Jeannie that comes from a choreo, not from a choreo background, but you know, like who's in both scenes, and then or you know, even Maribeth, she came from like the Fine Movement and like that whole idea of like that choreo side, and then now these people are being introduced to the freestyle, or like the breaking community, and everyone's all happy and everyone's all good with it, right? And that's, again, we're just mending the two scenes together.
Winnipeg's legendary battles. Break for bread. Rep your step. Believe the hype. Dance for MS. Peace of mind. Too raw. Who's the illest? Battle cry. Heat the streets.
It's using that hip hop culture to, again, one, inspire people, to wow people, but to also teach them that, like, yo, there's more to this dance thing than just dance, right? Like, there's a culture involved, there's a family involved, there's a community involved, and if you want to be a part of it, just come out. You're in, right? There is no audition to be part of the hip hop community.
I'm certain there's going to be a reemergence of the b-boy and b-girls. I'm certain of that. Just because they're survivors, and those survivors have descendants, like in terms of lineage.
So we're starting to see a lot of the younger kids coming out. We're starting to see a lot of the older guys like myself, Remedial Crowd, start cultivating younger students, because we're going into studios, we're having kids jams now. Kids jams is a big thing now. You know, having junior brackets, like when they can see those skills turn to transferable skills, they're hook, line, and sinker. Like, parents will sign them up, they will drive them to practice, they will drive them to random areas of Winnipeg to drop them off at practice with some 25-year-old guy that they met at some dance studio. But just like for the love of it, you know, like it's not to make that part sound like weird and sketchy, but like that's what happens. Like, parents drop them off at CK. There's just like a bunch of b-boys. We're all sketch bags. But then like the kid comes out of it like sweating, beat up. He's feeling good because he just like practiced windmills for the last 45 minutes. He goes home. He tries to show his parents. Parents are messaging us on Facebook like he won't get off the carpet. He has so many carpet burns now, but they're excited. And the parents are excited too. And the kid's like so enveloped in something that it's like, if he takes this and runs with it at that age, God knows what he's going to turn into as an adult.
The foundation for what is to come is probably the strongest that it's ever been.
What brought me to Winnipeg was basically family. I was already coming out here a couple times prior to just the dance. And then to sum up what I can passionately go on to a long thing is like I fell in love with the place. I mean, people still ask me, what is Winnipeg? What are you doing there? You know, even knowing that, you know, I have family here and everything else, I think it's basically where it's like, I love it here. Like, they used to say the same thing about my hometown. What's up there? You know, it was like outside of like, you know, my tribes up there and everything else, you know, like our reservations up there as well. To even here, where I even fell in love with the fact that how many, you know, Indigenous people are here as well. And like, I've branched out and met so many more Indigenous people out here that little do we know, they know the same people I know, or they've been to the reservation that I've been to, or things like that, where it puts a smile on my face. I think just the essence of being here gives me that sense that breaking gives me. It gives me that sense of peace and home. Winnipeg definitely is that description of community.
The thing that's great about the Winnipeg dance scene is because it's I mean, you could say this about anything, but it's our scene.
Traveling so much with dance, I've come to realize that although all the other crews and all the other dancers from the other cities obviously are super talented, I would say that Winnipeg is one of the most talented in the country.
Winnipeg has made a lot of noise here in Toronto, and they hear a lot about from around the way. A lot of people mention like CCAT and Boss and Project. They know they know a lot of the crews. That a lot of the b-boys know all the breaking crews in Winnipeg too as well. So we're not unknown.
We're not going anywhere. This isn't a fad. Like, this is our life.
We didn't go to a fancy dance school or whatever. Like, this is where we started.
People think it's just moves, it's choreography. Oh, it's trendy. You know, anyone could do this. No.
You can tell when someone's from Winnipeg, which is cool, which I really like, and I hope we don't ever lose that.
Just because you're getting good and then move somewhere else, you should always come back and always teach Winnipeg, because that's the best way for us to grow.
I told myself if I ever wanted to make it, whatever that may mean, like make it as a dancer and stuff, I want to make it from my hometown.
I feel like Winnipeg has done something really unique. In the last 20 years, dance has blown up in our community, but not just as studio or professional dance. The hip hop crew community is pretty fascinating. And I think it's important for young dancers to understand the history of how this all began, but also the culture and how it has evolved.
With the amount of dancers that there are in these junior high and high school programs, this documentary is important for them to know what happened and the reason they even have a dance class.
Watching this generation now, it's really their job to push it.
What we do matters. What we do is valuable, and what we do changes lives, seriously, as deep as that sounds.
Shout out to the unsung, I guess, dancers like Vidal, like I mentioned before, Vidal Messana, to Vancouver Dynamic and Rap Crew Express, City Lights Dance Squad, Midnight, just the guys and girls that set the foundation truly, like, of what's happening here, and had no idea. Because, you know, back then nobody knew, and thanks to the shout outs to the trailblazers that try to keep the knowledge alive. So Bob, the documentarian, the tape master, the living specimen of Winnipeg.
This documentary is important because no one knows why I'm not joking. This documentary is important because to know you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you're coming from. And the Winnipeg scene has such a lush history that is important to capture. And I feel that now is the time to capture that.
I have a saying that I created: dance because you love it, dance to inspire others, and dance because you can. And if you live by that motto, you will be happy doing what you're doing, always.